All right, so we have a question today, which is Wendell from Level 1 Techs. Is Intel actually screwed?
We need to unpack that because I think Intel has had their Zen 1 moment, maybe, and they could be on an upward trajectory. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There can be a lot of rug pulls, but we need to talk about it.
There is something that I was thinking of, though. So in our affiliate stats, where you can look at what people are generally buying through articles and review recommendations, right now, month to month, it is over 80% AMD.
Wow.
There have been somewhere it's over 90%. That's from our audience, so that's going to be a kind of a filtered.
It's an informed audience. It's also worried about something.
Yeah, and the 9800X3, of course, very popular. 7800X3, very popular. But Intel is just disappearing more and more.
A little worried about Intel. A little worried.
So, well, they just got that infusion from the government, though, so we'll see if that works. Before that, this video is brought to you by the Height Y70 Touch Infinite. We previously reviewed the Height Y70 non-touch series and found its overall build quality to be good and competitive. Now, the Y70 Touch Infinite ships with a custom 14.9-inch IPS touchscreen with a 60Hz refresh rate. The screen connects to your system build and can be used as a showpiece on the angled corner front panel, displaying stats, music players, videos, and more. Height's entire Y70 series now also includes multiple new colors, like the Taro model that you're seeing here. Learn more at the link in the description below. What about even on desktop side? So one of the things we were talking about earlier is Intel, for all of their faults, their memory controller is actually still pretty good.
Yeah.
And this is an area where, from what you were saying earlier, AMD has room to improve.
Yeah. Like in this era, again, you had to populate all the memory channels. I have Nemix memory in here, which is like the true value memory. Like generally, not your number one choice. Not even like number 8 or 9.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, it was just like, because it's usually like
Give this to Steve. Get this out of my office.
It's emergency backup. So, but this platform was a little picky with how much memory that it worked with, and that's all like Zen 2 and Zen 3. Like, again, you kind of dial it in. It's like I need this memory configuration with these ranks. And it can make a big difference. I mean, it can make like 7-8% performance difference, just the physical arrangement of the chips on the DIMMs, and people ordering memory and doing that kind of configuration, they weren't really used to dealing with that. AMD experienced a little bit of a rug pull with Xeon 6. Xeon 6 can do 8800 megatransfer per second. Like that's officially supported, works great, 1 DIMM per channel, chassis configurations. And that Intel has absolutely nailed that absurdly high memory bandwidth. Threadripper 9000 just launched, and they support 6400. It is technically JEDEC 6400, which is 1.1 volts, which is great, but that also opens up Expo 6400, which has even better timings. But there's a JEDEC standard for 6400 and 7200 and beyond, and all that. It's a lot of fun. But AMD is now nailing it in a way on Zen 5 that they weren't nailing it when Zen 5 launched. Like, it was up to like Supermicro or HP or Dell. Like, they could build a solution that was qualified at 6400, but like Supermicro just launched a new motherboard. Like, if you're going to do DIY, they have Epic motherboards, and the H13 SSL was the launch board for Zen 5. Doesn't guarantee 6400. The H14 not only guarantees 6400, but now also supports another 100 watts.
Okay.
There's some Zen 5 processors that have a CTDP of up to 500 watts. And so 500 watts plus 6400, that's big. That's a big deal.
Zen 5's launch on consumer, at least, when it first came out, was a clusterfuck.
If we're talking about AM5, the Threadripper launch shows how much memory bandwidth is left on the table by AM5.
Okay. Because
the same chiplets, same clock speed, you can lock all that. And if you configure your Threadripper with just 2 channels, just 2 sticks of memory, you run the diagnostics, you run the benchmarks, it's upwards of 20% faster. 20% performance gains at DDR5.
Actual performance in testing, or?
No, just testing performance.
Theoretical bandwidth improvement?
Theoretical bandwidth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, that's still a lot.
Real world is less.
Yeah.
But
I guess point being that, so as the battle continues, and hopefully there is one, like hopefully Intel's, they're good on the memory controller side. It's the everything else that they need to not Intel. They need to stop Intelling it. But if Intel can get it together and kind of roll out some competitive parts in the coming launches, hopefully, with AMD, do you think the area they need to focus is the memory controller at this point?
I like the memory controller for the reasons we've talked about.
Yeah.
But I also really like the memory controller if you look at it from mobile and like the Strix Halo side of things.
Okay.
And so like Strix Halo has this magical like 220 to 250, depending on the account and configuration of the platform, 8,000 mega transfer. It's like, oh, there's that 8800. Like, how is that? It's not upgradable, but Strix Halo with that kind of memory bandwidth is absurd. Now, the naysayers will say that the Zen cores don't have full access to that memory bandwidth, but you can still use the GPU primitives to load stuff into memory that is accessible to the cores. So there's still a performance benefit to the Zen cores that the chip itself is able to, it's like twice as fast. Strix Halo is as much memory bandwidth as a 4-channel Threadripper platform, which is absurd. And yes, we need that on desktop. I think we need that on desktop yesterday.
Okay.
And I hope Medusa Halo is twice as fast as Strix Halo, and Zen 6 is twice as fast as that.
When did you first start seeing a chance for AMD? Because AMD was god-awful up until Zen.
It was crazy because in the server space, AMD was making real gains in server. And then they just kind of tapered off, and that sort of led into the bulldozer era. And by the time Zen launched, AMD's in the server space had basically completely disappeared. And they launched Zen 1, and they launched Epic CPUs. You remember Epic Naples? Yeah. It was a lot of fun. I brought this. This is a museum piece. You're going to borrow this because you can still use Naples. You can still use Zen 1 in 2025, but only as an emergency backup because it's got a lot of PCIe lanes. But this is not launch day Naples. This is actually the 7371. This came not quite 2 years later, but this is 3.8 gigahertz. And it wasn't the Zen launch. Like the Zen launch is like, oh, AMD's kind of in the game, but it's really the consistent execution. Like Intel's got, in the server space, Intel's got Xeon 6. I kind of like Xeon 6. It's good stuff. But now the question is like, can they consistently execute? This, for AMD, this is when I knew that AMD was on to something because these CPUs are 3.8 gigahertz, 16 cores, and this was just, quote unquote, just the Plus upgrade. It's not really, this isn't really Zen Plus, but it was around the Zen Plus in terms of timing.
Zen and a quarter.
Yeah, it wasn't Zen 2, but it's still, there's no I/O die in this design or anything like that. It's the two desktop chips glued together kind of thing. And this thing is absurdly fast for this era. It's 3.8 gigahertz.
So this is 2018?
Yep, 2018.
Because the 2700, the R7 2700, I think, was April of 2018. Zen 1, like the 1800X, the 1700, was middle or end of year 2017.
Yep. The thing with this was the clock speed. It's like servers of that era and before generally didn't have a clock speed. If you were deploying a 16-core Skylake CPU, it was not going to be 3.8 gigahertz.
Which Skylake? There's so many options.
A Xeon 14 plus. Yeah, no. 3.8 gigahertz, the financial people, like the people on Wall Street, would buy off-roadmap server CPUs that could clock really high, but other than that, you couldn't get absurdly high clock speed CPUs. And 3.8 gigahertz, like, you had fast desktop CPUs, but it was so hard to get a server CPU, and these were so fast and so stable. Now this is Zen 1, this is Naples, this is Zen 5, this is Zen 5 Epic in the tiny little AM5 configuration. 16 cores, 48 gigs of memory. 32 cores, 16 cores per CPU, 64 gigs of memory, because those are real low density DIMMs. This system beats the pants off of that system in basically anything you'd want to do. The clock speed is higher. The instructions per clock is absurdly higher. The only thing that this thing has is a ton of PCIe lanes, which is what you need if you need to connect a bunch of NVMe. This doesn't have the PCIe lanes, but other than that, this is faster and better in just about every way. From Zen 1 to Zen 5, that is a huge leap.
And Zen 1 was already a huge leap on Bulldozer. So I remember covering the Zen launch in 2017. That was like, okay, AMD is present. They're definitely not the default choice yet, but they were there. And it got exciting, I felt like, when Intel responded with the 8700K, which was a really cool CPU. think that was that weird config. It was like a 6 and 12 or something, 6-core 12 thread. And then they followed up with a 9900K as competition to the 2700. That was when AMD and Intel were actually leapfrogging each other in gaming performance and going back and forth really well. What was it like on the server side? Because on the gaming side, for those first couple generations of Zen, it was AMD has a chance, but if at any point they fumble, they're fucked, right?
Yeah,
so
it was like that on server as well.
Okay.
So people that had tried Zen 1 servers, Naples, before this, it was okay. It had its warts. It had certain idiosyncrasies. One of the idiosyncrasies that I noticed among volume buyers, let's call them, was that this platform really works well when all the memory channels are populated.
Okay.
And that is the future today. Like the system, like the competition and everything is so intense that is now true today. Intel used to do really well if you only had like 1 or 2 sticks of memory. Their memory controller is really solid. Skylake in its day, it's like, oh, we're going to have, it's 2 groups of 3 channels, 6 memory channels, and it's like you want to run 2 or 4, all right, that's fine. Only just in the last couple of years, the last couple of generations, do we have reasonable-ish performance. But really, it's better if you populate all 8 or 12 memory channels. And that was super true in Naples. Like you needed all the, like it just wasn't going to run right unless you had all the memory channels populated. And so that quirk for early adopters was kind of annoying. This was not a volume product. 7371 basically came at the tail end of the Naples product lifetime. And I think they kind of used this as a pipe cleaner to get an absurd amount of PCIe lanes going, because this whole thing, all these cables, this gigabyte chassis, is all about delivering the PCIe lanes from the back to the front. And it was obviously not an original design consideration,
Right.
because they're using tons of redrivers and retimers to take a PCIe slot and bring it to the front.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas the design of something like this now, they just put a bunch of connectors at the front of the motherboard and they deliver the connectivity that way. So they've eliminated all of this. Like 75% of the material you see here for PCIe Gen 5 is completely gone in a modern chassis.
So was this municipal network of roads, what was this an artifact of at that time?
In this era, this was an absurd amount of PCIe lanes. You could not get this kind of connectivity on this kind of platform. Remember SLI NVLink bridges?
Yes.
The whole reason that entire kerfuffle happened is because you couldn't get the CPU to service enough PCIe lanes. Jensen literally had to go build his own high-speed interface because nobody was keeping up with the PCIe lanes.
Right.
And then in bursts, AMD was with PCIe Gen 4. First with Gen 4.
Yeah.
First with Gen 5.
Yeah.
And, sort of the rest is history. But this is when I knew the 7371 was like, holy crap. The, execution cadence, blah, 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 these guys are going to be onto something. But it wasn't, I would say that in the enterprise space, it wasn't until Rome. So the early adopters of Rome, so Zen 2.
Okay, Zen 2.
And it's like, oh, and the early Zen 2 platforms also had their own teething issues. But there's a ton of, if you look at the Zen 2 platforms that were deployed, a lot of them are still in use today.
Just anecdotally from your own experience with, companies you work with, but when, or has there been, but when was there a switchover point where the bulk being Intel switched to the bulk being AMD, if that's happened?
It's really more, the thinking now is really more still horses for courses. But there is a lot of, the sentiment that I have is just, wow, AMD's killing it, but also they have the leadership product at this point. Whereas before, something like this at 3.8 gigahertz, it's like this was a good I/O server. This is good for certain workloads, but it's like, oh, we have a different.
You have to find a use case.
Right, yeah, exactly. But it costs less by a lot, and so that's really attractive. And now, price really isn't the consideration. It is the geometry of the problem, the workload that you're trying to solve. And it's like, which one fits better?
So given the position right now, AMD and Intel is in a tough spot in consumer. So they've got the Ultra 200 series, which is not particularly advisable. Yes, there's a few upsides. And one of the things I don't like about it is the confinement to a platform that's basically going to be dead in one generation. Maybe there's a refresh, but that's still the same generation. AMD just launched their 9th year of AM4 CPUs. and
That's exciting.
Yes, it's long in the tooth, but it's nice to see because it's still a valid board for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So Intel it's having trouble with its fabs. It's paused fab construction. It's begging for bailout money. It's getting it in some cases. They really have problems right now. They just laid off another, 15% of their workforce or something. So the honorary question is Intel actually screwed?
I think that the answer to that question, it's looking worse than the last time you asked me that question, which is not fabulous. But so it wasn't the Zen 1 launch of AMD, it was this. Intel has launched Xeon 6. And like the Xeon 6 parts that I've tested are mostly really good. But it is, in a lot of ways, a kind of Zen 1 moment for Intel. Like, they're learning how to do fabs again. They're learning how to do, 18A, like all the stuff that goes into that. Like, they're learning. Now the most important thing is cadence. And, Xeon 6 launched in November of last year. And there's a lot of companies that are leaning into this yearly product cadence. The runway is shortening a lot. Xeon 7 has to be that much better than Xeon 6, as Xeon 6 was that much better than Xeon 5. Like Xeon 4, like from Skylake on, is just kind of like, ugh. Not consistent cadence, execution. You look at that in the product portfolio, and it's like, it's not telling a good story. But Xeon 6, there's a big 12 memory channel platform, there's an 8 memory channel platform. The 8 memory channel platform, I think, it needs a little bit more, oomph. But to Xeon 7, they're going to have to, they're going to have to deliver that much, and then people will feel good because they have the cadence.
Yeah. So does it come down to? It almost sounds like one of the things you just said was they're learning how to do fabs again, which is a very concerning statement. First of all, but second, like that's not a thing you want to learn how to do a second time after you've spent all the money on them. But like when Zen launched, because we started this topic on your relic of history here.
Yeah.
And when Zen launched, it was the same thing you're saying now for Intel, I think, where a company, especially to invest in Zen 1, they probably want to see some follow through.
Yeah.
And it's a chicken or the egg problem because there's no follow through unless Zen 1's successful.
Yeah.
So, but now you're saying Intel needs to have successful follow through because I guess it has damaged its brand that much. Yeah,
explicitly in the enterprise circles that again, I'm just a computer janitor, but from what I hear in the janitorial circles as I'm mopping up in the back, it is the consistency of execution. It is the cadence that is more impressive. It's like we don't know about the roadmap. We don't know if we're going to need x86 cores or AI compute. Like we don't know what the future holds. But AI, for what AMD is doing, whether that's AI or anything else, they've been very consistent. They've been very forthcoming. They have been very direct. They have been there's a lot of confidence of that nature in the boardroom. And from Intel, I think they should have let Pat Gelsinger finish what he started. And there was a lot of really interesting engineering stuff. I really like what I see from B50 and B60 and Battle Matrix, like on the GPU side of things. Is that going to open up the whole AI thing? I mean, Lip Bhutan doesn't think so. He said it's like, I think that ship has sailed, or I forget exactly what his quote was, but it was kind of damning.
Yeah.
And so, is Intel screwed in that? It's like, Lip Bhutan certainly thinks that he is in those verticals, and the majority of compute is happening now not on x86.
Right.
So it's like, are two people fighting over a thing that doesn't matter anymore when you have all of this other kind of compute happening on not x86?
What do you think? That's pretty crazy. On track, baby.
The Pat Gelsinger thing that's interesting because at the office we've been talking about this, where it's like his approach was you got to spend money to make money, and we're going to spend a lot of money, and we're going to invest in infrastructure, and maybe it doesn't work out. I don't know, but I feel like where they pulled the plug on it is like a very precarious position because they started all these massive capital investments and then kind of chickened out on them.
If Xeon 7 is as much of an improvement on Xeon 6 as Xeon 6 was on Xeon 5, Intel's going to be fine. If that's the particular unicorn that they're chasing. Now, I don't know what the geometry of profit margins and like, is this a good, they can make it, but can they make it at a profit?
Okay, so who makes, because I don't know the Xeon world, who makes Xeon, is it 6 right now?
Intel.
So Intel's fabbing it?
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know, I mean, Xeon 7, if there's any rumors or anything out there? Nothing yet?
No,
okay.
I don't know who's making it or anything like that. But you look like the 285K, and it's like learning how to fab again. That was kind of what, I was sort of leaning into on like the desk. I was like, okay, maybe they'll make some of the things, but then the volume parts, and it's like, working with TSMC and other fabs is nothing new for Intel. They've been doing that forever. But there is something that doesn't smell right there.
Also, at some point, your margin gets chewed up so much
Yeah.
that it might be difficult to reinvest in their own fabs. 'Cause, I mean, certainly from TSMC's perspective, it's like, if they're going to be your competitor,
Yeah.
yeah, you want their business, but you don't want them to have such a good margin on what they sell that they can compete with you. So
that's another thing that I've been slightly annoyed by with AMD is that the board partners, and I don't know if this is an Intel thing or a board partner thing, but like the Z890 motherboards for Intel there's a lot of really nice, like legit bananas boards, especially with launch. And with the Zen 5, like when X870, X870E launched, it just felt like, X670 do-over edition. And
that's what it was.
yeah. and there's a couple boards that have launched now that give you the ability to disable like the USB 4 controller, and then you can have two NVMe Gen 5 direct to the CPU and 16 Gen 5 lanes to your GPU. And that is amazing. That is what we should have launched with for X870E. AMD's leaning into USB 4 now that they've got the Thunderbolt compatibility down to an art, which is great. And it is a good thing to have, but I think they probably should have done the PCIe layout a little differently for enthusiasts. And a lot of the home lab people, the people who are looking at home lab and building things, or even people that are looking at a system like this, you have maybe an X8 slot and two X4 slots directly into the CPU, and then dual M.2 for RAID 1 or whatever for your operating system. But you can't get a board that has that layout.
Right. So then to loop it back one last time for closing here, is Intel right now, is Intel actually screwed?
It seems that people that are at the helm of Intel want to see it broken up. And I think that because of that and not engineering reasons, Intel would be screwed if they're going to be screwed.
Right. All right, so that is the answer for now. And
I don't want Intel to be screwed.
Nobody does.
They have so much good engineering and it's like so much good, like interesting stuff that they could be doing, and I really want to see what they cook up because they've got a lot of good engineering talent. And
as we've talked about before, it's not like we're talking about two computer case companies where if one of them can't compete, fuck them. Like that's how it works. But the problem with silicon is if one of them can't compete, it becomes a monopoly instantaneously.
Nothing good ever comes from having a monoculture.
And this is like the real big challenge with Intel too, is like to replace that or to duplicate TSMC with a competitor is virtually impossible in the short term. So we want Intel to do well, but they got to do it themselves. Like you can't just kickstart Intel. So that'll be it. That's your answer. Thank you, Wendell, for joining me.
Oh, thank you.
And find Level 1 Techs at the link in the description below.